Welcome to another episode of the Managed Partners Podcast. I'm Kevin Daisy, and I'm your host. Today, I have a really cool guest that lives in my neck of the woods. Got Kellam Parks, and he's been a longtime listener, and I'm excited to have him on the show today to share his unique journey and his story. So, Kellam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we connected back again, I guess, if you will, on the law firm Growth Summit, which is a virtual summit that Moshe puts on. And I want to say, I saw you in the chat or the comments, and so you responded to me and said, "Hey, I'm right here in Virginia Beach, and I listened to your podcast." And I said, "Oh, I know who you are." And I've spoken with your firm before, and Jerry Clark, who does your all's marketing. So very familiar, and I appreciate you listening. And so reached out and said, "Hey, let's get you on the show." And we had quite a long chat the other day talking about business and your story and your background. And we could talk about a lot of things here on the show today, but we kind of narrowed it down to a few things. So, but first off, let's get your background, your story, and tell us, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of kick it over to, talk about law firm ownership and multi-state and kind of where you're at today.
Sure, yeah, happy to do it. So I am a Tidewater, Virginia native. My father's family got off the boat late 1600s, early 1700s, I think, on the Eastern Shore. He grew up in Norfolk. So I grew up here, went to law school, and we were married, decided I knew I wanted to come back. I thought I was going to be a prosecutor. I geared my whole education toward that until my last year and said, I can't afford to be a prosecutor. I paid my way through school. So I jumped to civil. I did insurance defense for a little while, found that wasn't my gig. I didn't like it. I actually took a year and a half off from practicing law and waited tables. There was a really fancy, nice restaurant that was opening called One Fish, Two Fish in Virginia Beach. I was the first wait staff there. I waited it was great on the water. It's now the Porch. I think it's a really cool, more of a hot spot than a restaurant type. This fancy restaurant these days.
We take the boat up there often, so very nice spot.
It's gorgeous. I mean, it's surrounded by water on three sides, and they hadn't even built it yet, which was nice. I show up for my interview in a suit, and the soon to be the guy's he's like, "You're a little overdressed, right?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a lawyer." Blah, blah, blah. He's like, "Did you get disbarred?" And I'm like, no. And I told him, I said, look, my mom was ill at the time and I didn't really enjoy what I did. And that made sense to try to figure out my life. And sad part is I made almost as much money that first year practicing or waiting tables than I did practicing law. But I went back into it about a year and a half after I went back. I worked for a couple of firms, did a lot of civil stuff, did almost every kind of law. And then I worked for a local firm that had about 30 attorneys, great firm. But it came time for me to want to be partner. And I realized I really didn't want to be somewhere where there were 20 plus owners, even though, again, I really liked the firm, great people. I didn't want to run my business as a committee. And I also wanted to use modern technologies, and I wanted to do some consumer facing law that was sort of a conflict of what I could do there. And so I looked around. I found Ben Glass, who owns and runs Great Legal Marketing online. I always laugh because I joined his group, and I've been a part of his group now for 12 years. When I first met him, I said, you convinced me to start my own firm. You didn't even know. But I spent about a year figuring it out and then launched my own firm as a solo in 2012. And about 3 years later, I'd hired, a couple people. I convinced my older sister to come down and come back to the area and be my right hand and just sort of office manage and help everything. She and I laugh. She's the world's worst paralegal. Meaning she doesn't have any training in the law, and that was not her strength. Good office manager, bad paralegal. But then one of my former partners and a good friend of mine, Brandon Zeigler, who he and I worked at two of the law firms together over the years, and I've been practicing law now for 25 years to give an idea. I graduated in 1999. He was also leaving that other firm and bought in, came over to start his own, was thinking about starting his own firm. We had a conversation, and that led to him buying in, and he and I now are co-partners of this, which is now Parks Zeigler. And we've grown. So I started the firm as a solo in January 2012. As of June of this year, we have 13 lawyers. We have 3 offices. Our main office is in Virginia Beach. We've got one in Chesapeake. And then we also have an office in Elizabeth City, North Carolina.
2 states. You're in 2 states now.
Yeah, we're in 2 states. You bet. Yeah, so we're in 2 states. And that was sort of a conscious choice. And we could talk about sort of our growth model if that's of interest to you later. So we've just grown it and we've done a ton of stuff on how to get here and moving forward. And he and I divide and conquer. He's responsible for sort of money, buildings, and people. Then I'm responsible for marketing, technology, systems, procedures. And then we meet every week. We have a COO, we have a business coach. And so we just sort of do our thing.
Well, I like how you all have, you know, I'm good at these things. He's good at these things, and separate that. And that's my business partner, and exactly how we've done here. We're totally different. So we both have our different strengths. And so, yeah, I think it's good to define that and say, hey, I'm going to be over here. You handle this over there. And of course, you have multiple partners. You can figure that out as well. But
you are going to have strengths and weaknesses, sure. And we try to lean into our strengths. We try to hire for our weaknesses. We also want to maximize. One of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years of owning, my own law firm and I own a couple of other companies is even when you're good at something, even when you like something, you want to do the most valuable thing for what you're doing. So, for instance, I'm a tech guy. I'm a tech nerd. I'm a nerd in general. You see Star Wars stuff behind me, and so that's my jam. But I used to build. I do computer gaming as a hobby, but I used to build my own systems because I good at it. I liked it. It was fun. I don't do it anymore. I don't have the time. It's not the best use of my time. And so the same thing for Brandon and myself. We lean into what we like to do. We lean into what we're good at. And then we have our COO do everything that we shouldn't do or can't do well. And we hire out for expertise. By no means is Brandon a Luddite, but he's not. I'm the tech guy. Like I do cybersecurity, data privacy is an area. I chaired the Virginia State Bar's Special Committee on Future and Technology of Law. I use cloud-based systems. I'm into AI. So that is my knowledge base, my strength, and I get it. There's no sense in Brandon doing that stuff when he's not as knowledgeable or skilled as I am, and it doesn't satisfy him as much. But he loves numbers. And so he takes the first crack at that. I take the first crack at the other. We meet every week and talk about it and make some decisions. And that's just a great way to manage a company because you can't do everything.
No, I love that. And yeah, I like to your point too, is doing the most valuable things and focus on that. So it's easy to get involved and do all the things that you like to do or you're good at or whatever, but what's the value behind it and is it really worth it? So yeah, for me, even a few months ago, I made a list of all the things I do every day. And sometimes I have to redo this list and go back and go, what am I doing every day? And things start to creep in, right? Well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And you just start to take things over from people and go, why am I doing this? And so I think it's good to have a analysis every once in a while. Say, hey, what do I need to be doing that? Probably not. It's $10 an hour work, or it's it's just stuff I don't need to be busying myself with. But I think it's good to do a check-in every once in a while to say, hey, am I doing stuff I shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, I think Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, is just a huge resource, and he calls it, do the audit, right? So figure out what you're spending your time on, and then figure out, should you be doing that task? Basically, it was
I wish I could remember the book. It wasn't that book because a few people have recommended that. I think someone sent me a copy, to be honest with you. That might be telling me something. But there's a different book I read, and I can't remember the title. It was a fairly short book. Like I finished it on a plane trip, but it was make a list of, the things that you do, and then you categorize them in four different buckets. $10 an hour work, $100 an hour work, $1,000 an hour work, and $10,000 an hour work.
Yep.
And so you wanted to get rid of the $10 an hour work completely, if possible. The $100 an hour work is okay, but you're a lawyer, you probably charge more than that per hour. So, but what you want to make sure you do is at least once a day, am I doing $1,000 an hour work for 1 hour? And then $10,000 an hour work is like you're on stage speaking to a group, or you're doing something that's, you can't really put a value to it.
Yeah.
And then focusing more on that $1,000 and $10,000 stuff and trying to clear your plate of all the other things. So I thought it was a cool exercise.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's the basic. I know it really, and I talked about this offline when we chatted a bit, but that Dan Martell, I mean, it's not a concept, right? Delegate, figure out best use of tasks. But what I really enjoyed about Dan's book, and I just read it, I say read it. I listen to these most days because, time, working out, doing that kind of stuff. But
same here.
When I listened to the book, what really clicked with me is he, in his book, he's got a formula, and he basically says, take what your actual yearly income is. And by income, that's the benefits, that's everything. divide it by 2,000 hours, and then divide that by 4 because you want to get a 4 times multiple. And then anything that you can hire for that amount or less, you should just do it. And of course, the more money you make, the bigger that number is, but that's okay because then the more money you'll make. And it was just such a concrete, formulaic way. And so I'm right now in the process of trying to do that. I'm doing the audit, figuring it out, what I can delegate. And because again, as a business owner, that's your job, is to grow the business. And try. I mean, certainly you're going to do some of the work, and especially for lawyers that like practicing law, which I don't really. I love the business of law more now. My partner, Brandon, still loves litigating, and he's a fantastic litigator. I mean, I'm a good litigator. Don't get me wrong. I still litigate, and when I do it best I can. But that doesn't jazz me as much. I really love the business part. And so, and again, I charge significantly more than $100 an hour. But even at my rate, which is not a secret, it's $500 an hour for my work. That's a lot, but it's still $500 an hour. I'm tying money to time, which is a bad deal.
Yeah. You'll never win that game. So
no. Yeah, you're capped.
No, I like that. And so Greg Goldenfarb, another great attorney out there. He's an attorney that hasn't practiced in 15 years. He decided 15 years ago that he was better at running the business than he was being an attorney. And so he doesn't practice it, anymore. So he just works on the business all day, every day. And he's got it pretty dialed in, but he's focused on that. Right. And, obviously there's a lot of attorneys that want to continue to practice and they enjoy it and they can cherry pick, but still run the business and work on the business.
Yeah, when I talk to lawyers that are owning, want to own a firm or owning firm and trying to do better and that kind of stuff, what I always ask is sort of, hey, what really satisfies you, right? Do you love the business of law? Do you love the practice of law? Or do you love both? And you can do any one of those 3 buckets. And whatever bucket you pick, though, really decides how you're going to run your firm. Because if you just want to practice law, well, then now you have to hire a bunch of C-level executives to run the thing. If you just want to run the law firm and don't want to practice at all, well, hey, now obviously you got to hire some good lawyers and paralegals. And if you like to do both, that's when you really kind of have to, but you can cherry pick. You can pick only the best cases or only the money. Look, if you make enough money, maybe you only do pro bono. Maybe you only pick the cases where you can give away your time. Whatever satisfies you. I mean, I turned 50 this year and I'm at the point where I'm on the back side, right? I'm on the back half probably. And so I don't want to do anything I don't want to do. Like I want to maximize my time.
Yeah. And I think that's, too, looking at outside the business as an owner. Like I mow my lawn, which every time I do it, I'm like, well, this is a pain in the butt. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And, I could easily just have so much. And I've had people do it in the past, but every once in a while I'll make a different change and be like, I'll just buy a new lawnmower. And that costs a couple grand. And
yeah. And then you're mowing your lawn.
It would take me years of paying someone to mow it to equal the cost of the lawnmower.
Right.
Like, so I'm not saving money.
Again, my partner loves working in the yard. Like that's one of his Zen things, right? He loves hands in dirt, pride, work. Great. That's a hobby. No problem. You can see from my pasty skin, do not go outside very often. I'm a computer nerd. So we have somebody takes care of my pool. Somebody takes care of my yard. Somebody takes care of the stuff around the house because I don't enjoy it. And by the way, I'm bad at it. And by the way, I'm allergic to grass. So why am I going to kill myself on something I don't like? And see from the other end of it, some people go, oh, I can't believe you're hiring all that stuff out. Well, you know what? Those people are making money. Like that's their job. I'm now, I'm hiring the company that hires other people. That's capitalism. Everybody wins.
Yeah. And you're not running home early from work or trying to move things around your schedule to get things done, or you're not wasting your leisure time or your family time.
Yeah. Right. 100%.
So I think it goes beyond the office, right? As an owner, your time's valuable. And so that $10 an hour work, it goes with you home, right? And what things can you hire out and focus?
Well, it is. I'm taking it one step further. So one of the things that I'm going to by next week do is probably the end of this week, quite frankly, is I'm going to hire a VA service, virtual assistant service. So I've been investigating companies. I have friends that use various companies, and I'm talking to one person tomorrow. That's the last company I've interviewed. And I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to hire that person. Well, that person is going to be my personal executive assistant. And they are going to help me. Actually, they're not going to do anything with my law firm, but they're going to help me with my other businesses. They're going to help me with my personal stuff, such as, hey, I'm going on a trip. I really look at the best restaurants in the city. This is what I'm kind of interested in. And then they can go give me some suggestions. Or, hey, I need to, like, for instance, we were doing insurance for one of my other companies and it took me an hour and a half on the phone to get it straight a couple weeks ago. I could just delegate that. Hey, this is what we need. Please take care of it. And it's just that level, personal business. Again, you're freeing up that time, which is time is the most valuable thing you've got for sure.
So there's not a lawyer, but a local business owner that you would know, Chantel Ray. She owns real estate companies. Mm-hmm. Friend of mine, I've known her for a long time. My wife mentioned it to me, but she's hiring a house manager for her house.
Mm-hmm.
And people were just like, that's insane. That's crazy. I was like, you don't know how much she makes, but let's just imagine how much she makes.
Sure.
She's got a big house. She's got kids. She's got yard. She's got, all these things, right? So for someone that makes a lot of money, normal folks they couldn't really get their head around. How could you hire someone with a salary to manage your house? And so I was telling my wife this weekend, I was like, I think we need one of those. And I wasn't even joking. I wasn't even joking very much. She was like, well, what I do? I was like, you work. You can focus on work and then not work when you're done working.
Right.
And I'm working. So I don't think we're actually hire like a full-time person like that. But
sure,
what you're doing is like exactly like my thought process is managing stuff. There's stuff to collect, personal stuff for taxes and ordering this or that, or the kids need this or that, or we're going on trips, planning those things. So I think there's something really to that, especially if you're making good money.
Yeah. And look, I'm not trying to be an advertisement for Dan Martell's book because I don't get royalties or anything, but it was such an impactful book for me. Well, he mentions that in his book, right? He goes, we hired a house manager. He's got kids. His wife also works. And he said, look, we both work. She lives with us. She takes care of the kids. When we go on trips, we send her like vacations. We send her ahead. She gets everything ready. She takes care of it. He said, every day at 4:00, he works from home. He goes, every day at 4:00, I have an energy dip. She comes in and gives me, I have a protein shake. She just makes sure everything's done. And he says, look, I know people listening or reading this book are like, oh, how could you? He said, look, that's obviously you have to have the money to hire these people, right? So we're not like, I'm not at the point where I can afford. I'm happily, I feel like I'm pretty successful. I don't have enough money to hire a full-time house manager. However, you start with a VA, right? And then eventually, if you make enough money, again, you're trading time for money. People somehow are resistant to the idea because they feel because that's the American ideal, right? Oh, you're lazy. If you don't take care of your own, you must be lazy or you're not a hard worker. Or you're not.
Yeah. Man,
I work hard. I just choose what I work hard on.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Say Louis Scott. I don't know if you've probably heard his name. He owned a personal injury firm. He now runs 8-figure firm. I went to his event in Chicago recently. He's got kids, a wife. They all go with him to these conferences where he takes his kids. They have a nanny that goes ahead, gets the room ready, watches the kid while he's doing his conferences. His wife usually is attending the conferences. She goes out to the dinners and all that stuff. And then they take their kids around and do some things while they're in the city. But he's got a full-time person that goes on all their trips with them, goes ahead and does all the stuff that you're just talking about.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen it in real time.
Yeah. Sure.
There's something to that. So just like with your business, your law firm, bringing on someone to help you do these things or bringing on a COO or CEO. If you're not good at it, you have to hire and bring them on.
Or don't have the time to do it. And so that's what Brandon and I, always laugh to say we've been successful despite ourselves, which is half true. So, we're not stupid and we're good lawyers and we treat people well and we hope to hire people, good people and all that sort of stuff. But, we played plenty of missteps along the way, that we could have saved us a lot of time and money. And even if we had everything right, we're both still practicing law, some weeks harder than others. And we don't have time to do some of this stuff. And so we hired a chief executive officer 2 Aprils ago. Jennifer Copen works for us. She's great. It's funny. We did a national search and it turns out she lived in Chesapeake. So, which is right next door to where we are in Virginia Beach. So, Yeah, and she's trained as a CPA, did that for a while, and then she was basically a COO for some medical related companies, and then a publicly traded company, and then we have her. And then we discovered that she was great operational, everything else, but we were so busy and she was so busy that we had issues with long-term planning and sort of strategic moves. And so we ended up going and looking for a business coach. And so we looked into the EOS traction system. Gino Wickman, I know you know, and operate
Yep.
same way. And so it's an organizational thing. And we were looking at that type of coach and a couple others. And I'm the systems procedure. I'm the checklist guy. So I got names from about 25 people because part of what I do is I'm part of a lot of groups. I go to a lot of conferences. I do a lot of that kind of stuff. And so I had a lot of contacts across the country of successful lawyers that have these people. And so I got a bunch of names, narrowed it down to about 12. We got it down to 4. We interviewed 4. And we ended up going with Stephanie Everett, who is the CEO of The Lawyerist, which is a group coaching company, great company. They were bought by Affinity Consulting last year, I think. And so she was the owner of Lawyerist, and now she runs it. But she's a lawyer and, used to have her own law firm, and she does individual coaching as well for select clients that she wants to work with and are a good fit. And so she's our personal business coach. And so we fly her in 4 times a year to do our stuff. And that has allowed us to go to the next level because now we can do strategic planning, and she's a resource for our COO. And so that's the kind of thing I always am big on when we talk about running a law firm is you got to pay attention to the business part of it, which lawyers traditionally are horrible at because we don't have any training. We don't have the experience. And quite frankly, we're so busy practicing law. Even if you know it, you don't have time to do it, which was our thing.
Yeah, I think that's, a good tip there. I mean, for one, a couple of things there to unpack. One, you've been exposed to lots of groups, Ben Glass, other conferences. What that gave you was resources and referral partners to go reach out to and say, hey, I'm looking for this. I'm trying to hire this or that. And that led you to kind of bring on a new business coach. And the other thing there is having coaches, always, no matter what level you're at, or you bring on a CEO or a COO or a CFO, you don't want to just not have a coach because, well, I figured it all out. I got it all done. There's always things to work on. And so you might have to switch to a different coach through time, and you should be kind of, doing that. The one coach might not be someone that can take you to the next level.
Yeah.
So I think, one of those, just the exposure and going out and being part of these groups to navigate this whole, ecosystem out there. There's so many resources for law firm owners out there. So many great groups, and you don't have to just be part of one like you've done. You can get out there and check a lot of things out and find what works best for you.
So Great Legal Marketing has got an annual conference, usually in October, and I've been going every year. I go every year.
I'm about to be getting my tickets soon.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going, I think you're going as well. It's in Arizona this year, which would be nice. I haven't been to Arizona. So, people ask me sometimes, why do you go every year? Is there new stuff? And I go, it's not like there's all of a sudden a new concept I've never heard of before, but sometimes it's a new take on a concept. Sometimes I wasn't in the right place to hear it. I wasn't in the right place to do it. But even if none of that's true, which by the way, it's always true, but even if it isn't, maybe I'll meet a new vendor. But most importantly, I meet other lawyers and I make connections. And what I do, I have personal, what I call them masterminds. I've got personal one-on-ones with probably about 9 lawyers now. Between 2 to 4 times a year, we get on a Zoom call and just talk about what's going on in our firms. And they're all over the country. I got one up in Canada. And it's invaluable because, I get tips, tricks. Oh, don't do this. Here's a good vendor. That's how I got, again, Stephanie ultimately was recommended by somebody. And I was like, oh, great. And it saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'll say is when I was at the conference before last, somebody asked me, hey, which of the, because I mentioned because I pay to be part of 3, at the time I paid to be part of 4 groups. And they said, well, which one of the 4 is your favorite? I go, that's not the question. I get something different out of all 4. For this group, it's the online presence. For this group, it's the yearly conference. For this group, it's this skill set. For this, it's and I've been in and out. So yeah, and sometimes you outgrow it. Sometimes you don't have time. I'm fortunate, it's never been about, I can't afford it, but it's best use of your money, right? So it's not necessarily can I afford it, it's do I want to put my money there? and you just change. But it's, again, I've been fortunate because I've been doing this now for 12 years and I jumped in this space both feet. I know dozens, I would say probably over 100 lawyers across the nation that I am in touch with at least a couple of times a year in some way. That gives me a great base to say, hey, I'm thinking about this. I can't, here, I'm chewing on this issue. I got this nut I can't crack. Can you help me out? And most people are very generous to do that. Like I'm a rising tide lifts all boats kind of guy. Like I'm abundance mindset. Let's help each other out.
I love it. Same here. I mean, yeah. So there's just so many resources out there. I made a comment on a lawyer's LinkedIn post today. Is Chris Early? Out of,
he's great.
Boston.
He's the guy that asked me. Chris is the one that asked me, which is your favorite? And I'm like, oh well, here's blah blah blah. So that's what such a coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris, if you're listening,
that was great.
But I commented on one of his posts, and his post was about something about just kind of the struggle and when you start out, stuff like that. And then I posted something about when I started my company, I was solo, basically by myself for years before I had a contractor or an employee or anything like that. And so a lady reached out to me. She's a lawyer, and she's like, I'm in solo mode. I've been struggling for like 3 years. She's like, would you mind talking to me? I'm like, what, you've done and how did you do it and all this stuff. So I've been talking to her and trying to see how I can help her and things like that. But I'm like, well, what is it you're struggling with? Is it you can't get cases, you can't do the work, all the above, just doing it alone? Like, what is it I can try to help you with? I'm just like, there's so many groups out there and so many people that are willing to help you if you just ask. So it's really, you have everything to your advantage if you'll reach out and say, hey, can I join your group, or get out there? There's so much out there resource wise. And so that's what I started with her. Like, hey, there's all these groups, people willing to help. And there's no shortage of that for sure.
And a lot of it's free. I mean, a lot of Facebook groups or other online groups, I mean, a ton of them are free. And, if you like them, you like the person who owns them, and then maybe you'll join their group or buy their product. But a lot of times they're not even selling. It's just, here's my community. And you post, Facebook, because we're older. So Facebook, right? You get on a Facebook group and you're like, hey, I got this issue. And then you get 20 responses.
Yeah. So I have the managing partners mastermind, which is a Facebook group, which is totally free.
I follow them too. Like, you name
I invite lawyers I know. And that's it.
Right.
But I don't sell nothing. So
sure. But you know what's going to happen is one day somebody from that group's going to just find you and come back, and they're going to need SEO services, and they're going to, I saw that. So you can be selfless, but it always works.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, someone needs my help for sure. I hope that's the end goal, right? The end goal is someone says, oh, I do need your help. That's why I have this podcast, right? I'm not a lawyer, but I got to get myself out there.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I'm a business owner, and that's what this podcast is about. And I've connected with so many attorneys about running businesses, and I can talk to them about running a business, not about the law, because I can't talk about that part. But it's just, it's just been a great journey because of how connected the community is. And I've been accepted for the most part as a non-lawyer to just, talk and network, and it's just been great. So, but as a lawyer, if you're listening, there's so much out there, free, paid, it doesn't matter. You can reach out to Kellam, and he'll tell you exactly who you need to talk to or guide you. So there's just no excuse, I guess, to be like, hey, it's too hard to do this. It's too hard to run a law firm. You just got to ask.
Oh, sure. And by the way, not everybody should run a law firm, right? So that's one of the things. And I'll tell you, I like this so much that I'm actually launching a company end of the year, beginning of next, depending. I'm going to because I have all the time in the world, but I'm creating a side gig where I want to teach.
How would you do home manager, house manager?
Right, exactly. Hey, maybe I'll be one of those. Maybe that's my calling. But yeah, no, I just really enjoy helping other people, saying, hey, look, I've done this for a while. Here's what but there's not one size fits all. And so that's part of when I talk, because I talk, for instance, I had a young lawyer call me 6 months ago and say, hey, your name was given to me so-and-so. I'm starting my own law firm. I've only been practicing 5 years or so, and I would love to take you to lunch. I like to eat, clearly, clearly. So I said, sure, let's go. So we went to lunch and I gave him some ideas and I talked about a VA and he hadn't considered it. He's like, oh, maybe I'll look into that. But, there are some people that I know that work for larger firms, for, big firm lawyers, and they're like, oh, I was talking about doing my own law. All right, well, how much money do you make? And they tell me, and it's some huge sum. And I said, okay, well, how many hours you work? I work this many hours. So I said, okay, what do you really love? I love going to court. Okay. Well, do you like doing this, and this? And oh, I don't like any of that business stuff. It's okay. Do you like uncertainty? No, I don't like uncertainty. Okay. Well, you might want to stay where you are then. Because you got to, you got business, you got a steady paycheck, you make a ton of money. I get there's challenges, but let me assure you, owning a law firm is not the panacea. Like, you're going to have multiply your problems by 20, but they're your problems. And nobody's going to tell you what to do. But again, you got to, what I always say is, what do you want? What do you think you want? Because sometimes you don't know, right? And that's the important thing is, what do you want? How do you think you can get there? And then we can come up with a plan. And that's what we try to do here. We sit down and think, okay, for instance, I mentioned sort of our growth model earlier, and Brandon and I sort of fell into the first, we have a 3-legged stool is what I like to say. And the first leg was hire lateral attorneys that have a book of business. They're good in their area. We like them. They've got a good reputation, and they're unhappy where they are for whatever reason. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's not. We just happened to attract some attorneys that way. And then we started to have people come to us without us having to find them. The second leg appeared where we had an attorney who had a practice in a different city, and she wanted to wrap up her own. She was tired of administration and she had some other stuff going on. And so we basically folded her practice into ours, and she now heads up that other office in another city. And now we have one in North Carolina. And so those two have just sort of been our models, right? So we look around. And then the third leg, which we haven't been successful with yet, is find an older attorney who's ready to retire or slow down. And unfortunately, most lawyers have not created a business they can sell because it's them.
Yeah.
So if they're not doing the work, they're the draw. So if you're that attorney and you want to slow down or even retire, the minute you do that, you have nothing. So instead of that, why don't you close your doors, come over to us, we'll pay you a salary, we'll pay your benefits, and we'll pay you a percentage of rainmaking, origination, we'll pay you a percentage of production if you still want to practice law. And your job is to rainmake and mentor. So you can help our younger attorneys, you can help bring in the business. And then if you want to, if you just want to slow down and still practice, great. And we just haven't found the right fit, but we're definitely looking for that, because I think it's in my mind, at least, and in Brandon's, our mind, I should say, Brandon and I talked about this extensively. It's a win-win.
That's a great exit strategy for someone in that situation.
I think so. Now, our goal is to build a business that doesn't rely on us, right? I mean, it has our name in the title right now, but we're building systems, procedures, peoples, technologies that when the day comes that Brandon and I don't want to do this anymore, we'd love to, then we can, okay, sell it to somebody who's already here, or sell it to somebody else, or it's the day is coming to where maybe there's an equity company that wants to buy it, right?
That's on the horizon for sure.
Sure.
Arizona, Utah, you can own a law firm without even being a lawyer.
Yeah.
And once that becomes a standard practice, private equity will be all over it, I think. So, but you have to be sellable, to your point. And you have to work years in advance to build your practice to be sellable. You can't just be like, hey, you know what? I think I'll sell next year. And then, you have to really plan ahead 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5. Exactly right. Yeah. I think 5 is what, and I can't remember his name now, but I was, somebody was telling me about a guy that's his whole job is to sell law firms. And that's the thing is, hey, it's a 5 year. 5 years is a good sweet spot.
Oh, yeah, that's about right. I mean, we're doing the same thing here. I mean, we're not looking at selling right this second, or even on our mind, but you got to prepare for it. And if you don't, you're running it like that anyway, right? So
right.
You want to have those things in place. You can walk away, you can step aside, gives everyone else opportunity to rise up as well. So it's just the right thing to do. I met a guy in Chicago, actually. I was like, hey, attorney, what do you do? Oh, I'm not an attorney. He's like, I'm a digital marketer. Oh, he's like, but I own a divorce firm. I was like, what? Yeah, so digital marketer, Now owns his own divorce firm, has lawyers that work for him.
Yep.
He goes to conferences and learns how to run the business. So that's a new reality.
Yeah, the practice of law, it's for some it's a calling, it's the profession. I get it, and it's important, and it depending on what kind of law you do, obviously, is whether there's a lot of social use for it, right? So, criminal defendants are providing a constitutional right, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you own a law firm, it's also a business. So whether you want to grow and whether you want to maximize profits, that's a personal question, and that's fine. But you need to at least make enough money to pay yourself and pay your people. And that's another thing that I really liked about Big Glass, because look, making money is not a bad thing. And he gives away. He's big. He's a very spiritual guy, and he's adopted a bunch of kids, and he gives a lot of money away, and he's charity. And he's like, look, I make good money, and then I can use that money for whatever I want. I can give it away. I can volunteer my time. I can do a lot of good if I don't have to worry about my own family starving, which I think is huge.
100%. It's hard to give back if you don't have enough for yourself.
Yeah, can't save anybody else if you're drowning.
And as a lawyer, just to kind of take it next step, if you're providing legal services or helping people out in whatever situation they're in, the bigger you get, the more people you impact. Yep. There's lots of people that need your help. And so if you're really good at providing that help and getting results for your clients, why wouldn't you want to help more of them? So versus making a very small impact and helping a few of them.
Right.
So
sure. I agree.
If you want to just look at it from that perspective, the money would just be on the other side. So
very true.
Yeah. One of the things I liked you said a little while back, I thought holds true for me for sure. You go to all these conferences, you listen to all these talks, you listen to this podcast, different episodes, different guests. And you said something about like, hey, why do you still go to that same conference? Is it any different every time? And you were saying, well, you just weren't ready for that, whatever it was at that time. It might not have sunk in. You might not have understood it, whatever it may be. That's been true for me millions of times. Like where you're like, I have heard about that before, but now it makes sense. And now I'm going to apply it. And I'm right in the spot where I can apply it and I understand it. And so you're not going to be able to do and apply everything you learn. You're just not ready for it. So going and exposing yourself to this stuff time and time again, that's when you start to go, you know what? I knew that. Now it's time to do it. So that's a huge takeaway right there for me.
No, I agree. One of the things, because when I went to my first Great Legal Marketing Conference, which was in 2012, I think one of the things that Ben said from the stage, which really resonated, he's like, look, guys, this is if you're new to owning a law firm or you're new to this group, he said, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. He said, so don't get freaked out. Don't try to retain it all. But what you want to do is you want to listen to everything, take good notes, and then find one or two things and do them.
Yes.
And I will tell you, I did not listen to that advice. I tried to drink the entire fire hose, came back with a million ideas, and implemented, I think, none of them for a while. It just was like, it just didn't.
Because you're overwhelmed.
I was overwhelmed. And I'm also, I'm getting better, but I'm a perfectionist, and that is a death knell for an entrepreneur, right? So good is good enough is huge. So I was like, I don't have the money to do this right. I don't have the time to do this perfectly. I don't know enough. I need to research some more. And I've gotten a lot better in the last decade for that. I can assure you. Now I'm like, yeah, let's just give it a shot. But yeah, so I think that's smart, is that you're right. I mean, we have things, attentions, maybe we don't have the money to do it. Maybe we don't have the staff to do it. Maybe we don't have the time to do it. Maybe we're not in the right position. Maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe we just didn't hear it right. Maybe we're too stupid. Maybe we'll get smarter. Maybe we'll be more mature. I mean, there's a million reasons why you hear things at a different time that resonate, but it's true. But the secret is do something. Do something with the biggest impact. And by the way, it doesn't always cost you money, which goes back to the free groups. So one of the most valuable things that we ever did at the firm, which monetarily cost us about $500, is we did a direct lawyer referral system where we created basically we took all the list of all the attorneys in our area. This is back in 2019. I think we had 8 attorneys at the time. So I had a list of every Tidewater attorney. All 8 of us went through the list and marked, did we know them more than hello and who knew them best? And we did this huge logic puzzle, which took forever. We categorized them in certain areas, and then we sent personalized letters in each area to follow up with drinks, lunch, or dinner, depending on how well we knew them. And the whole thing was to just get in front of them, be top of mind. Hey, you don't do family law, refers business. And it cost 9 months and a tremendous amount of time. But all we had to, for money, it cost us mailing 500 letters. It was 500 lawyers we sent it out to. And then COVID hit. So we weren't, because we wanted to drop them into a funnel where we would touch them 4 times a year and put them, categorize them and tag them and do all this really, really good stuff. COVID happened and, the world shut down. But last time, I can guarantee you, I know for a fact out of what we looked at that it made us at least $500,000 since 2018.
Wow. Yeah. That's
for $500.
Yeah, that's great. And then not to mention probably with the long-term effects of you reaching out to all those attorneys and.
Oh yeah. And had we done it right, it would have been a lot. And again, by the way, we're doing it again. So that's one thing I'm actually.
I was going to say, go back and do that again.
Well, I met with, you mentioned Jerry Clark is our marketing manager, and we meet every Monday morning. And so I met with her this morning, and so we have the new list and we put it together, and now it's my job to cull it. And it's been on my desk for 2 weeks. So I'm like, yeah, I got to get to that. But we're doing that now. Now we have 13 lawyers in 2 states, and we do a lot more. So we're gonna parse it. Otherwise, it's gonna be too big. But we have the systems now. So we use Lawmatics as our CRM. It's our intake CRM system. Really love that software program. And that's going to allow us to tag everybody and monitor everybody. And we can text people and we can track it and we can do so much more. And they will go into that funnel. And now I'm touching all these lawyers 4 times a year. And you just need to be top of mind.
Give me your same list. I can hit them all up.
Yeah. Right. And for $4,500, you too can. Right. I love it.
Just kind of include me in your, at the bottom of the list in the marketing.
I love it, right? Yeah. CC. Right. There's like a BCC. It's funny.
You have people buy in that, get a little insert.
Advertise. Look, man, I can monetize anything. We're good.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Well, Kellam, I appreciate your time on here today to talk about a lot of different things, but, a lot of good takeaways for sure. And I think with all the conferences, and for me, I know it's like, you can go, it's like, you got to come back and say, okay, what did I do with that time and money I spent, other than just meeting people and relationships. But you need to come back and apply something you learned, make those connections, follow up with people you did meet. So yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of people waste a lot of money and time going to things and just having fun, and maybe that's all they want to do. But you need to take some action on something. Just pick a thing, pick a two, like Ben said.
Yeah, and I'll say, it's interesting because people go, oh, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. Sure, and for me, time is more valuable than money on these kinds of things when I look at the costs of this stuff. But just talking pure out-of-pocket costs, you go to one of these conferences, it's probably going to cost you $3-4 by the time you pay to go, and then the hotel and food and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the thing you think about is, your average case value is probably anywhere from $1,000 to $20,000. Like, depends on what type of law you do and what level of case. But like we figured out, like our average non-high asset divorce, because we have to put that in another category because it'll skew all the numbers. But the average divorce, or I wouldn't even say divorce, the average family law case is a better issue, is about $6,500. So that includes sort of the low end semi-uncontested divorces to a custody trial. So sure. I know that every family law client that comes in the door is worth at least $6,500 on average. And so if I go to a conference and if I'm doing something that gets me one more case that year, I've paid for the conference and then some. Or let's look at efficiencies. If I come up with one process that gives me 1% efficiency at our size, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot more than the conference cost.
Right. A lot more. So you just got to pick one or two and do it, and it will be tremendous. And let's say, even just say to make any money, but let's say you figure out something that gives you back 10% personal time. Well, that's invaluable. So
today people are going to go get their own VA now, and
I'm telling you,
That's it.
And look, we'll talk again 6 months. Let's talk again. I'll tell you how it goes, because I'll have one by the end of the month.
I like that idea. And you were about to say something earlier where you're going to do something new.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about that now.
Sure.
But,
yeah. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still, I'm still running this firm with my partner. We also happen to own a dance studio. Like, my daughter's 26 and my wife's a retired teacher. And so the three of us own a Studio 17 dance in Virginia Beach for ballet, contemporary jazz, that kind of stuff. So we run that dance company. I don't spend a lot of time on it because I don't have it, much to my wife and daughter's chagrin. But so I'm spending some time on that. But then I really just like this so much that I've started I will say I have founded a company that I'm going to launch at the end of the year. And I'll have more details when I do that, because I want to get it straight. But basically, the gist is I'm going to talk about coaching stuff. I'm going to really lean into the technology part, because that's sort of my bread and butter. And I'm actually going to spend a lot of time on AI. So it's not just like an AI tech company, but that's one tool in my toolbox that I'm going to try to share and help, because how you can leverage that is for people that don't know about it. I mean, everyone's heard it at this point, but if you don't really know about it and you don't utilize it, it is transformative to the sense that the internet and email did to lawyers, more so. It will blow your mind. So,
yeah.
So that'll be interesting. So we'll talk about it I will definitely reach out to you when I do that too.
Yeah. I'll help you get the word out and get that launched. But lawyers stand by for what Kellam's up to.
Right. Teaser. I love
it's a teaser. Excellent. All right. Well, Kellam, I appreciate everything and all the sharing today. Everyone, reach out to Kellam, connect with him. If you don't know how to connect with him, connect with me, message me on LinkedIn, and I'll do my best to connect the two of you. I'm sure he's an open book when it comes to any questions you have. Anyone out there looking to exit their law firm, might want to talk to him as well. So,
yeah, we're always hiring. Parks Zeigler. It's my law firm is Parks Zeigler. It's pzlaw.com. All my information's on there. You can reach out to me directly. Happy to talk to you about anything and everything at any time.
Yeah, I love the .com or the domain address. So good pick on that. So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next show, and get out there, grow your law firms. We'll see you soon.